Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast by Pebble. I've got an amazing guest today. I'm actually a fan of his. It's this book here that I've got in front of me, SYSTEMology. David Jenyns, all the way from Australia. He specializes in building systems and helping entrepreneurs, solopreneurs think about getting systems. He's got a great framework with SYSTEMology. It's a book that I read last year, and it's really something that we've embraced and brought into our team. So I finally got him in as a guest here on the show. So I think you're going to find this very, very helpful, and it's going to start flicking some switches in your head here, thinking, oh my gosh, I think we really need to start thinking about this, because as the space of land continues to get more competitive, we need to start leveraging ourselves to really start doing the high level things for our business to keep it moving, not the operational side of things. Aside from that, I do want to let you know this show is brought to you by Pebble, but I want to share with you a 5-day challenge that I am now running called the Dirt Hacker Challenge. You can find more about that at dirthackerchallenge.com, and it is a 5-day intensive where I work with you on fully getting systemized, on building a platform to actually grow and scale your business methodically. We talk about things like, how do we capture leads? How should we record leads? Leveraging websites. We even have breakout time to work on scripts, to actually record ourselves. There's homework, and really starting to think about your entire what we call system flow. A lot of people who come on calls with me always say, I'm not a techie. I don't know how to get systemized. And it's not about being a techie. It's everything to do with being clear and having clarity. So during this 5-day challenge, I will be working with you in this group, all on getting you systemized. So when you come out of that 5 days, you know the entire platform, your system, your processes. I'm not teaching strategy here. I'm not teaching how to price here. All I care about is, do you have systems in place to continue to grow and optimize your land business? That's all I care about. All right. So make sure you head over to dirthackerchallenge.com, sign up for that challenge. Other than that, I really hope you enjoy this episode here with David Jenyns. Cheers. Hey, how's it going? I've got a very special guest here with me today, David Jenyns. He is the author of the book SYSTEMology, which I've read last year, and we've embraced it. We've brought the strategies that he's talked about in his book into our business, and I'm so excited to have you here. David, how are you doing?
Jesse, my pleasure. Thank you for the warm introduction, and looking forward to the episode.
Absolutely. You know what? I first of all, I want to thank you for responding to a random person on the internet who read your book and said, listen, you got to come on and talk to my audience here. So David doesn't really know too much about our world of land investing, but that doesn't matter. What really matters is we talk about processes and systems to actually grow a business. And that's what David is all about, and that's what he has a book on. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that book. But before we do that, David, let's just jump right into things. How does systemizing help a business to grow or scale at a very high level?
Yeah. Look, the main thing when a business owner gets started and they have this idea of a product or service that they want to sell, initially when they think about how they're going to solve that problem or create that business, it is with them doing the work. They're hands-on, they're on the tools, they're working with clients, and they wear many hats and they do every aspect of the business. What tends to happen is the business then gets stuck in habits and used to doing things a certain way. They start to train their prospects and their clients when you have a problem, you come to me, I solve your problem. And then if they start to grow and they get some team members, they start to train their team members. If you have a problem, you come to me. And what ends up happening is they build this business that's very dependent on them. And that enables them to grow it to one certain size of business, but it's actually the thing that then holds them back from growing it to the next level because they have trouble breaking those bad habits. And those habits are reinforced because they have some good success. They build up their
Yeah.
business, they get some runs on the board, and they go, this is working, and it's working because of all of these things I did. Yet they are the things that hold them back.
It's one of those things. I think you really said it. We've kind of got these reinforced habits, and it does become it becomes really hard work to really break that pattern. So, if somebody were to start thinking about systemizing, what would be the easiest way to get, stepping in this right
Mm.
direction, aside from reading your book? But,
Yes, yeah.
what can you sort of give us to sort of those that are listening right now? Where can they sort of get started at?
The first thing that you need to reach the conclusion on is that you're going to need systems. And I think if you've been in business long enough and you're a business owner and you've seen successful businesses and other businesses grow and scale, you kind of naturally reach the conclusion that systems and processes are important. I think when you get down to it, I've never had a discussion with a business owner where we've come to the conclusion that, you know what, systems don't really help. So you first reach that conclusion, then you need to say, well, I need to decide, because this doesn't happen by chance. You don't go to sleep one day and then wake up the next morning and your business is completely systemized and you've created a systems culture. There is a process, it's step by step. Most of the resistance happens up front, especially if you've got existing team members. Just like you, they're stuck in their ways. They're used to doing things a certain way. And if you're going to try and shift the culture in your business to create some processes and step by step checklists that are followed when certain tasks are getting done, there's going to have to be some coaching and some guidance for your team through that. I think probably the biggest challenge I really want to shake for someone listening to this right now is it's very easy for the business owner, because they've built up some habits, to think, I'm not a systems person. And they just close off to the idea, or I've tried that before and it didn't work. And
Yeah.
it might just have been more of the approach that you took. And there are some ways that we can kind of guide you through that. That's a big part of what systemology is about.
Yeah. Yeah. Those habits, for sure. And yeah, well, let's go on to the next question here. Where do things usually break apart or fail when somebody is trying to systemize on their own? They're thinking checklists,
Mm,
as you mentioned. I'm building checklists. I'm doing that. Where do you commonly see things sort of fall apart or
mm.
break apart?
There's a few key elements you have to get in place for this to work. Commonly,
Mm,
people start off and they think, I just need a piece of software and I'll install this in my business and I'll put all of my checklists in there and I will have a systemized business. That's what people first start looking for, the software solution that will solve all their problems.
right.
Software is part of it, but you start to realize there are a few components. You've got to get the documentation down and it has to be stored somewhere. And that documentation, it could be written, it could be a video, it could be some other type of resource, but just a way that captures the way you do things. The other thing that you need to get into place is you need to think about how can you build a culture inside your
Mm,
business that the team is going to want to follow these processes. Like, it's kind of like getting the documentation down, getting the software and the tools in the correct place, and then getting your team to actually follow it. And sometimes, if we dig into it, if a business tries to systemize and it doesn't work for them, we look in these three areas and oftentimes something's missing. So, for example, someone might have documented their process, the team didn't follow them. They say, well, what's the point of documenting my processes because my team won't follow it anyway? When the real issue is you didn't get to the heart of, well, how do we get your team involved? How do we start to build proof that you are a systemized business and this is how we do things here? And build it into your recruitment and your onboarding process for new team members. So there's definitely a few elements there. I think probably where a lot go wrong is they just give up a bit too early. This is
Mm,
something that might take 12 to 18 months of consistent, depending on the size of your team, but
yeah.
consistent chipping away at creating process, keeping it front and center, getting the team on board to the point at which they realize this is not just a harebrained idea that we're following for 3 months and then we're abandoning it. This is, oh,
Yeah.
wow, we're committed to doing this.
Yeah. Got you. Let's take a step back here, David. I kind of just pulled you in to give me, let's talk about systemizing, and you have sort of this broken down step by step in the book here. Can you sort of give us a very high overview level of what does the systemology approach? How do you
Mm,
sort of go about it when it comes to
yeah.
systemizing?
So I wrote the book to answer some of the first questions people start to ask when they think about systemizing. So one of the first questions they'll ask is, well, what do I systemize first? What are the first 10 to 15 systems I get into place? How do I create those systems? Where am I
Hmm.
going to store those systems? How do I get my team on board? When should I be looking to improve my systems? Those are the types of questions that I wanted to answer and, I suppose, break some of the common misconceptions around systems. So, systemology, it's a 7-stage framework and it's for a particular type of person. It's for people who don't yet have good process in place or process. This is not a uh, process improvement methodology. It's almost like a best practice
Hmm.
process capture methodology. Like, how do you capture what you're currently
Yes.
doing and then not what you would like to be doing? And then how do you make that transferable so you can bring other team members up to that level? So
Yes.
that's one of the big differences, kind of going from 0 to 1 as we start to build this culture. And the 7 steps I take someone through is firstly the define stage. That's about identifying the 10 to 15 systems you're going to work on. Then there's the assign stage, which pre-assumes there are team members and people that you work with that know how to do those tasks that you just identified in stage number 1. Step
Yep.
number 3 is the extract phase, which is how do we make it easy to get those systems out of someone's head because everybody's busy, no one has time, and your best team members most definitely are time poor, so we need to make it easy for them. Then step number 4 is organize. Where are you going to store those systems and processes, and how do you link that with your project management platform? Step
Hmm.
number 5 is integrate. How do we make sure that the team realizes that there's a win for them for doing this? There's a real upside and a benefit for them building a systems culture. Step number 7 is scale. So early on, that step number 1, we identify the first 10 to 15 systems, but in the scale stage, we think about, well, what are the other systems that would be required to grow and scale your business? That would be
Hmm.
almost like a second sprint of work. Oftentimes, we think in terms of sprints. So you might
Yep.
have a 3 month sprint where you focus in on a narrow set of 10 to 15 systems before you move on to the next set. And then the final stage is optimize. And that's all about, we actually leave optimizing until last. It's a little counterintuitive because a lot of people try and do that right up front. But we just
Right.
say, your business is already kind of working. So just get it working without you or without key person dependency. Once you've reached that stage, then think about optimizing. And you might say, ooh, can we improve this process? How might we
Yes.
change this? Can we eliminate this step? But you only do that once you have a full picture of the business machine. If you're just
Right.
looking at one little piece, sometimes you can optimize one of the systems, but you don't realize what the effects downstream might be because
Yep.
you haven't really thought about what the whole looks like.
I love that. Thank you. And thank you so much for breaking that framework down. One of the things you mentioned is, we're assuming we have a team member, we have team members. Now, a lot of us in the land flipping business, we do start off by ourselves and do run a little bit by ourselves for a little while. Like, can someone who has no team members start thinking about systemizing, and why should they?
Yeah, excellent question. So the book initially was written for someone who has a small team around them, and there are a couple of tweaks and modifications that you would make if you're solo. We've still got plenty of clients that have come through, taken the methodology, and then kind of followed these tweaks I'm about to share with you. The first thing is there's no huge amount of leverage by you over documenting when it's only you. So if you go to the effort of creating all of these SOPs and how to documents and do a bunch of work, but you're the only one doing it, there's not a really huge amount of leverage or payoff that you will get from creating that work. So you have to really start to think about how do we make this simple on yourself? And the first thing that you do is you just start to record yourself as you do a range of tasks in your business. And that might be a Loom recording, it could be a Zoom recording, it could be an iPhone video when you're out in the field and you're inspecting a property, or whatever it might be. You just start to record yourself as you're doing things and annotate it or talk it out loud as you're doing it. Hey, this is what I'm looking for, or I'm responding to this client request and this is what I'm thinking I'm doing. And you just start to save those in something like a Dropbox or a Google Drive, or the SharePoint, wherever you save it. Just get videos and put them somewhere. That's kind of step number one as a solopreneur. And then step number two is you still head down the path of getting something like an admin assistant, and your first admin assistant that comes on board, their first job, you say, right, I want you to read the Systemology book. This is how I want to do things here. I want you to read that. Then I want you to watch the videos that I've recorded for you in this Google Drive folder. And I want you to start to build out checklists and processes for some of these videos. They watch that material. And then after they get through that, the assistant will inevitably say, I can do some of these tasks. They'll say, oh, I kind of went through that. And you know how you outreach to real estate agents and you try and build up relationships? Well, I can build you the list of those real estate agents. I can send the first contact email for you, and I'll let you know when they start to respond, and then you need to step in. So there's little admin tasks, and the whole job here really for you as a solopreneur is you think about how can you focus on the highest value activities you can. So where are the things that you're adding the most value? It might be the relationships. It might be talking to those prospects or talking to your vendors or whatever it might be. And you find out what they are and you spend most of your time on those tasks and you strip away all of the admin stuff. And that's kind of the path that a solopreneur would head.
All right, so I know you're enjoying this episode here with David, and it is such an honor to have him on this show. He is someone that you guys might know, Michael E. Gerber. He actually was reached out by him personally, the author of The E-Myth. Many of you guys may have heard that book. And anyways, nonetheless, he is a systems expert. And really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here when we're scaling our land business, it's all about processes. And this is where Pebble really focuses on. When we can bring all our data, when we can bring all the processes in one place and start thinking in processes like through our deal boards, like building our checklist, which is essentially our SOPs, our playbooks of how to run our business. This is all done within Pebble. So if you are interested to learn more about systemizing and really getting your business focused around processes so you can start working on your business and not in the business, and you can buy yourself back time and really the freedom to work on where you'd like to spend time within your business, make sure you head over to pebblerei.com. Hit I think it says view demo at the top. You can also book a demo with me personally. So head over to pebblerei.com, and I hope you continue to enjoy this episode. You're really, in essence, buying back your time by leveraging others to come in, and now you've got systems in place, and they're starting to understand your processes. So that is, and one of the big takeaways here, I think, that we didn't really mention, it was huge for me, was the simple fact that you told me, yeah, I can record it and have somebody else do this for me. This
Yes.
is, I remember reading this on my audiobook when I was at the gym, and I was like, oh my God, I've been, how come I didn't even think of that? Like, my gosh, I'm the worst person to do this. In fact, I think this is something that you talk a little bit about. Being the business owners are typically the worst people to document systems. Can you sort of explain to us
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, well, just like your best team members, you're busy. And systems always are considered important, but they're never urgent. The problem with your
Yeah,
best team members and you as a business owner, all you have a truckload of urgent things that
that's
always
right.
will take priority. You have to respond to a prospect's email. You'll have to get back to that person who sent you the message via LinkedIn. Like there's so many things that you as a business owner will need to do that you just won't find the time. And systems and processes, they're like an asset. And once you develop them, each asset creates a little bit of revenue or return for you. As in, you might create a system to look after your inbox. And it takes a bit of work up front to build that asset. But then once you've built that asset and you plug in a team member to follow it, now that asset continues to pay a dividend over a very long period of time because now you might save 15 minutes every single day for the
Yeah.
next 5 years. So, like an asset, once it's built, it gives you a return. So,
Mm,
while you might be focused on those emergency, immediate tasks that have to be done now, you need to make space for building assets because the
mm,
assets is really where you end up making the wealth because
yeah.
each of these systems builds on itself and then it starts to compound. And before you know it, you are working on your highest value tasks. So it's definitely, yeah, the business owner is the worst person, especially when it comes to the documenting. Like
Yes.
recording you doing it is one thing because you're
Yes.
a knowledgeable worker, but watching that video, pulling out the key steps, and there's even like huge changes since we've written the book now with the
Mm,
advancements in AI. You feed
yeah.
in something like Chat GPT, you make a recording, you get your video transcribed, you feed it into Chat GPT, and then you say, here is a transcript from a video. Could you please write me a step by step process? And it now creates version number one. Now, it's not perfect, but
Yeah.
again, you've just sped up that task creation infinitely.
Wow.
So it's, yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of changes in the space.
I didn't even think about using ChatGPT for that. That is, there you go, guys. The really cool stuff. So, I think one of the things here is this is really a long run game. I mean, like you said, it compounds over time, and that's one of the struggles I felt before when I've gotten started getting things systemized. Is the return isn't immediate,
Mm,
but I think over time you start realizing how much more bandwidth you have, mental bandwidth you have. It's so easy to convince yourself that no, I should be the one because I'm best at this. Can you talk to us a little bit and convince the listeners here
mm,
that, listen, there is a huge payoff to this over time?
mm. The purpose of a business is to build a commercial enterprise that works without you. So obviously, if the business is dependent on you and you're doing the work, it's almost like you are an employee of your own business. It might be your
Mm,
own business, but you're not really reaping the benefits of business ownership. So to make the transition to build a business that works without you, you have to get process into place and then you need to plug team members in behind you. So this is just part of a rite of passage for building a business. Most
yeah.
business owners, though, they get stuck and they get stuck in those habits that we talked about earlier. The biggest rewards, though, come from building this asset, which is the business. Like that's really the biggest asset is a business that can generate revenue for you, whether you're there or not. That's
Mm,
really ultimately where you want to get to. Now, and you might still enjoy doing the work, and that's okay. Another thing to keep in mind is I just want business owners to have the choice. Most
Yes.
business owners don't have the choice. They have to work or the money stops coming in. But a business owner
Yes.
should be able to decide, do they want to have a break? Do they want to work in the business? Do they want to work on the business? Are they creative? Do they like doing the developing? Maybe they like doing the building. Whichever pieces you enjoy doing, you should be focusing on those. And it shouldn't be because you have to do it, it should be because you want to do it. And that's really what we're trying to kind of work towards, is helping business owners reach that state.
I love that. I mean, that that sounds so sexy to me, but it's really, you basically have now the freedom to decide where you want to spend your time at, and having that freedom is the biggest payoff, I guess. You can work into do whatever you enjoy most, or you wherever you are most leveraged in the business to help the business grow. So I think that it couldn't be more black and white, and I appreciate you wording and framing that for me here. Um, Here's another one. One-off things. What happens? You're the business owner, but things aren't always repeatable with something that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
When do you make the judgment call for that? I struggle with that personally.
Yes.
Okay, we're doing this time just because of this one off. Like, should I document it? Like I really
Mm.
shouldn't be doing this. I really
Yes.
shouldn't, but I have to. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Mm. So the first thing when you think about systems is we apply the 80-20 rule. And we think just because we don't document something doesn't mean it's going to stop happening in the business. So you first think about, well, who is your target client and what is the primary product or service? You systemize that. Then you start to think about the other departments in your business and what are the critical systems in those departments. Well, you have to pay wages and you have to pay your taxes and you have to create some sort of reporting. So there's a handful of things that just have to happen. Start there first. Because for a lot of people, you just get the wins there. That way, you create up more space for you to handle those one offy type things. Once you get traction, you can get to a point where it becomes easier to shut down the exception. But it depends on the type of business. Also, you might end up creating space for your highest skilled team members to handle those one off situations. So,
Right.
if you think about it this way, who are the team members who can handle the one off situations? They're probably your most skilled team members and most
Mm.
valuable. So let's get space for them to only focus on the things that they can do, and everything
Right.
else that's recurring then goes off to an administrative assistant. So that's
Gotcha.
a good place to get started. Before you're thinking about shutting down things, I would just think about, well, we're going to have them. Let's just make sure the best person has capacity to work on them.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Okay. My last question here for you. So this all is great. We're working on getting systemized, and I encourage everybody listening to pick up Systemology, create time, reduce errors, and scale your profits with proven business systems. But that's by none other David Jenyns here on this call here. But I do have one question here. This is sort of a living thing, that what we're doing here, and nothing is ever set in stone. So how do we maintain what's the process to
Mm,
maintain processes, and what's
yeah.
the cadence typically look like, especially for a team that might be around that 2 to 4 people, two to
Yes.
five people team?
So I'm a little counterintuitive on this one, and I think it's partly because I know the type of clients that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
we don't need to over engineer things here. I think for the size that you're talking about initially, because it's just about building up a systems culture and getting people used to doing things, you really want to create a culture of, you kind of fix it in the moment as you go. It's
Mm.
not like every 12 months we review our pay process and make sure it's up to date and we tick it and then we go to the next box. We want to make sure that, well, if there's an error that pops up, hey, we keep on having this time logging issue in the timesheet and Joe keeps on getting his times wrong and then that's affecting him getting paid. Okay, well, let's revisit that payment system now and how can we make tweaks to improve it. So the secret is actually to get really good at listening to your business and identifying, creating some sort of internal issues list. that when a problem arises, it gets added to this list, and maybe once a month or once every few weeks, you chat with your team about it and you review the issues list and go, what is this? How did it happen? Can we fix it at the systems level? And that would be the approach rather than some set process or timing for review.
Got you. David, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And you're out in Australia, I believe. And
Yeah.
I don't know what time it is for you, but it might be pretty
Start
late.
of the day? Yep. So I'm
Start of the
just
day.
coming up to 9 a.m. today. So
Wow.
the other end.
David, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show here, and sharing with us your thoughts and the framework that you've built. Please make sure you check out SYSTEMology, the book by David Jenyns. David, thanks again for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jesse.
Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.